In today's video, I want to show you guys two stocks that could potentially make you a lot of money before the year is over. I want to show you guys why these stocks can make you a lot of money. I'm also going to show you guys how you can get into this play. So I value your time. With that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so the first stock that I want to talk about is Ethereum. So I know you guys are thinking for a long time, Ethereum has not been performing too well, right? But times have changed, money's going into it, and Ethereum is finally waking up. And I don't believe that it's too late to get in right now. So I still think that you can still make a lot of money with Ethereum before the year is over. And let me explain why. All right, so if you guys take a look at my screen, this is the first chart that I want to show y'all. And basically, this chart is just showing you Bitcoin's 4-year cycle, right? So if we pay attention to the yellow lines that I drew out, this is showing you the top of the previous 4-year cycle to where the top of the next 4-year cycle could potentially be. So what I mean by this is if we go back here, right, in the last cycle that we saw, Bitcoin topped out around November, December of 2021. If we go back another 4 years, Bitcoin topped out around November, December 2017. You go back another 4 years, Bitcoin topped out around November, December 2013. And these red lines that you see are just showing you when the Bitcoin halving event took place, right? So we saw the halving event took place around like April of 2024 this year, right? So the reason why I'm showing you this chart is that if history does repeat itself, it doesn't mean that it has to. Bitcoin could potentially top out sometime in November, December of this year, right? Doesn't mean it has to play out like this, but history has been doing the same thing for a very long time, which means that Bitcoin still has potentially a lot of room to grow before the year is over. And if Bitcoin has some room to grow, right? This means that other cryptos could potentially follow that growth, or, especially Ethereum, right? Could also, potentially grow a lot too before the year is over. But the next chart I want to show y'all, and the most important chart to really pay attention to, is the ETH BTC chart. So this chart is basically showing you how Ethereum is performing against Bitcoin. As you guys can see, for a very long time, right, Ethereum has been complete dog shit in the sense of how it's been performing against Bitcoin, and it's been going down. This trend's been down for a very long time, right? Bitcoin's up a drastic amount while Ethereum is still, fluctuating and down from all-time highs that we saw back in like 2021, right? Until this pivot happened right here. So this is the first time in this cycle that we've seen where, Ethereum has now consistently started to outperform Bitcoin. And this is showing that, okay, people are now starting to have confidence in Ethereum, right? People are now trying to make some more money in crypto. They're seeing that Bitcoin's up a lot already. And they're trying to, get some money from Ethereum. And, a lot of cash flow is going to Ethereum, which is, obviously rising the price up. So if we take a look at the past cycle that happened, you guys can see that, in the last year of that cycle is when Ethereum started outperforming Bitcoin, especially close to the end of that year, right? So the outperformance started back here in like January, actually, so a little bit later than this cycle. But basically it lasted all the way to the top of that cycle back in like November, December 2021, before it eventually started having a huge downtrend. So my point is, right, if history potentially repeats itself, doesn't mean it has to. Ethereum could continue to outperform Bitcoin until November, December this year, right? Until that, correction potentially happens where, the whole entire crypto market, whatever, goes down for a whole entire year, right? I have to say it again. It doesn't mean history has to repeat itself, but that's kind of what I'm betting on. And that's kind of what I'm seeing is happening right now. So if we take a look at Ethereum's chart, right, past 3 months, Ethereum is up 63%. If we look at Bitcoin, the past 3 months, Bitcoin is up not even 1% in the past 3 months, right? So you guys can see there's been a huge shift and people are now starting to put a lot of money into Ethereum. All right, so I really hope that makes sense. But basically what I'm trying to say is that if history does repeat itself, we could see the crypto market, top out sometime November, December of this year. And we're now starting to see Ethereum consistently outperform Bitcoin, right? There's a lot of strain in Ethereum, a lot of cash flows going to Ethereum, which means that, we potentially still have a lot of time, right, by the end of this year for Ethereum to keep on outperforming Bitcoin, which means that you still could potentially have time to get into this play. So let's talk about how you can get into this play. All right, so I believe that there's two best ways that you can play this out. You want to give yourself a lot of time for this whole thing to play out. So right now, the market as a whole is currently still close to an all-time high. We really haven't seen a correction, since like a big correction since the bottom of the Trump tariff situation, right? Since basically April 8th, the market has been in a huge uptrend. And we're going to September, and historically September has been a bad month. It doesn't mean that it has to be a bad month, but, you kind of got to be aware that maybe we can see some type of correction. We can see a pullback in the whole entire market, including the crypto sector. So the first thing that you can do is honestly just buy Ethereum itself. Just buy the equity and just leave it alone and give it time for things to play out. Even if Ethereum does have a massive correction, right? You still have the equity, you still have a lot of time, and things can go back up. So you can buy Ethereum right now, right? And every time Ethereum drops maybe $200, $300, $400, whatever it is that you come up with, right? You can dollar cost average and just be patient. That way you can at least have a piece of the action if Ethereum does have a massive run by the end of the year. But what I'm personally doing is I am buying leap options on Ethereum. So right now I have about $2,290, right? 2 contracts of Ethereum call options that expire January 1st of 2027, right? Basically giving me a lot of time for this whole thing to play out. I don't care if the market corrects. I don't care what the market does. I believe my theory, right? My analysis, and I want to give myself a lot of time for this thing to potentially play out. So what I'm doing is every time Ethereum drops $200, I am buying a long call option, right? I'm buying leaps on Ethereum. So if Ethereum was to come back down to 4,100 or 4,000, I would buy another call option, right? If Ethereum comes back down to, then 3,800, right? I would buy another call option. If Ethereum then comes back down to 3,600, another one. You guys get the point, right? For me, every time it comes down $200, I'm gonna buy a long-term call option and just be patient. But Ethereum has been seeing a lot of strong support around this 4,000 level, right? This is also giving me confidence that people are buying into Ethereum, right? You just kind of got to be patient and let this thing play out. So I think that's a safe way to do it, buying leap options and just giving the market time for things to play out. All right, so the next company I want to talk about is SoFi. So I've already made a video about SoFi explaining why it's such a good company, such a good bet. It could potentially make you a lot of money before the year is over. So I'll give you guys a broad overview of why I still believe that that's the case. And if by the grace of God, SoFi has some type of correction within the next couple of weeks or months, right, you need to get into the stock. So let me explain why. All right, so let's take a quick glimpse of the overall summary of SoFi's most recent earnings report. All right, so basically we take a look at this, right? Revenue is up 44% to a record of $858 million. Adjusted EBITDA is up 81% to a record of $249 million. Fee-based revenue up 72% to a record $378 million. Member growth up 34% to a record 11.7 million members. Product growth up 34% to a record 17.1 million products, right? And overall, the guidance was raised in 2025 for the foreseeable future. So basically, not to spend too much time on this, SoFi has been killing it from a fundamental financial perspective. This company is growing. The cash flow is looking good. They're making a lot of money, right? They're getting a lot of new users. And overall, the stock is just doing extremely well, right? And this growth has been a replication of the stock price. You guys can see SoFi is up 88% in the last 3 months because of this growth, right? The company is backing up a stock's price action. So now the question is, how can you get into this play when the stock is up so much in the past couple of months? And honestly, I think the best thing that you can do is just dollar cost average, because nobody knows when the stock is actually gonna have a correction, right? So when SoFi was around that $21 range, I personally thought SoFi may have some type of correction and come back to that, $18, $19 range that we saw in the previous highs. But instead, the stock just went up a lot more, right? People have a lot of confidence in the stock. And honestly, even though we're going to September, which is normally a bearish month, who knows what could happen? SoFi could easily go back up to $35, right? I think this is the type of stock where it's not worth trying to time it. Instead, just buy in. And, when the market gives you more opportunities, keep on buying in. So, for example, you could buy some SoFi now at $25, right? If SoFi comes back down to like $23, you can buy some more SoFi shares. If it comes back down to $21, you can buy some more SoFi shares. So every time SoFi has a correction by $2, right, you can just be patient and dollar cost average and buy some more shares, because you know that this company had amazing earnings and they raised their guidance for this year, right? Showing that, they have a lot of, confidence in the future of the company and the stock, which also shows that, investors will probably have a lot of confidence in this stock too. It could potentially keep on going higher before the year is over with. So right now, I personally have $3,500 in SoFi at an average cost of $21, right? And basically, I'm waiting for SoFi to come back down to like $23, right? SoFi comes back down to $23 for me personally. I will buy some more, right? Then every time it drops $2, I will buy some more. So I want to get into leap options for SoFi, long-term call options, but I just want to wait for SoFi to come back down, to that $21, $22 range. I just want to see some type of healthy correction, right? It doesn't mean that's going to happen, right? That's the risk. I don't know what the future holds, nor do I care what the future holds. I'm not trying to time it. I'm just going to get in when the market gives me opportunities, right? So we do see the drop to $23. I'm going to buy more shares. If we see another drop back to like $21 to $20, I'm going to buy long-term call options expiring like 2027 for SoFi. And every time the stock keeps on dropping $2 at that point, right, I'm going to keep on adding on to my long-term call option positions, right? Because I believe that this company could still be worth well over $30 before the year is over based on its fundamental financials. So I really hope this makes sense to y'all, but I really do believe that those two stocks are primed to make you a lot of money before the year is over with. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Do you guys agree or disagree? And if you disagree, let me know what stocks you're potentially looking into getting into. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.